Welcome to Chris Radio. We are back with little Dave. Another great Monday. It's sunny here, and I just posted his before and after back shots yesterday and then from 2021. So you figure just over 4.5 years ago. And, I think the coolest thing about that side by side shot for me is just knowing how much work has went into that and how you haven't complained once. Like, and for anyone who coaches out there, like that's rarity. Like,
Yeah.
and I think what's funny is like, that's not manipulating photos. That's just the fucking facts. And there isn't one muscle that you're posing in that back double bicep that isn't better. Um, and on top of that, you being currently leaner at the same exact point of a prep.
Mhm.
So, I know everyone's looking for secrets and magic and what happened, and it's just hard work, man. It's
Yeah.
4.5 years of just diligence and welcoming what needs to be done. Um, so when I post those, like I didn't even want to dig back to the very beginning, like because that the very beginning would be even more laughable,
Oh yeah. That'd be wild.
right? And eh, which is why I picked one kind of in the middle, right? So again, that to me just exemplifies why you've been so successful with me is every time we finish a contest, it's immediately no matter how you place, win, lose, or draw, it's like, how do we get better? What needs to happen next? What's the game plan? Attack on Monday or Sunday, fill in the blank. And I think that just recurring cycle of stage to rebound to health phase to off season and just again and again, like that's what builds over years, you know? And from your perspective, how was like if you think back to those photos you sent me on February 6th, 2021, like in your mind in that moment, like what were you thinking?
Pretty similar to what they have now. I mean, at that point, I was the best I'd been.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
The outside of like continue to make progress. I mean, when I sent you that check-in, I did all of my cardio, ate all of my meals.
Yep.
I trained as hard as I knew.
Yes. Yep.
So like at that point, I was like, "Fuck yeah, we're 10 weeks out. This is great."
Yeah.
And mind you, like that show, I did fantastic at, by
Oh
the
yeah.
way.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You were
You know,
fucking peeled.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like one of those like, all right, cool. Like at that point, like I was better than when I started. So like there's nothing to complain about there. I think that gets in too many people's heads is they look at their own progress and they look at Nick Walker who just competed at the New York and was like, oh man, I don't look like him. It's like, I mean that's great. It's like that gives me motivation all the time. I see that dude on stage, I'm like, fuck yeah, right? But at the same time, I'm not going to be like, oh man, I suck because he's better than me.
Right. Yeah.
Like all I'm going to do is use that as my own fuel.
Yeah.
Be
Yeah.
like, man, it would be cool to be on stage with that guy.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like Nick did the same fucking thing when he was coming through the ranks. I bet you money he was, he was seeing Ian Valier up there and being like, fuck this guy. I'm going to beat him one of these days.
Yep. And I mean, I think my memory's right. It was like 7 to 9 years. I don't remember exactly how many years it took him to turn pro.
Mhm.
So many forget that because like once he won North Americans, it was a pretty quick rise to the top. Because in my mind, like he was clearly in a groove at that point. And I know
Yeah.
for a lot of young guys out there, that's hard to explain because you haven't found it yet. But there's this magical time in bodybuilding where like getting all your food down is no longer a struggle. You know how to train for your body, you know the right amount of supplements you need. And then when you pair that together, it's like you just grow exponentially because you have everything set up in your life perfect for it by now. Like you have developed a routine, your spouse, girlfriend, whatever is like fully on board and supportive. Your family gets it. You have gym or gyms that accept you. Like it's really hard to describe when you hit that growth spurt. And like you're a prime example of that. Like you have found your groove and it's just like grow, repeat, grow, repeat. Like,
Hmm.
um, And I mean, from a coaching standpoint, like I've told people this all the time. I'm like, listen, he is the dream client, right? Like you do the work. If I have to coach you hard and say, hey, we got to fix this, you don't run from it. You are just like me. You're like, okay, cool. Like we need to fix my low lats. All right, we're gonna fucking fix them. Like simple as
Hmm.
that. Like I need better waist control. We're gonna fix it. You know, I sent you what a couple weeks ago. I was like, here, get this tanner because we're gonna be tan before you ever get sprayed.
Hmm.
Ordered. You ordered it that day. You
Yeah,
didn't.
it's legitimately downstairs in my like stuff. Like I know I'm not going to use that until July.
Yep. Yep.
Do I want to think about it the whole fucking time until July? No, I just want to have it on hand.
Right. Yep.
You know?
So it's like, when you have someone like me who obsesses about every little detail, like I'm already thinking about your posing and your tanning and what we're going to do in Vegas, right? So when I had that thought, I'm like, okay, send this to him. So it's on his mind, and you're like, fuck it, just there's no need for it to be on my mind. It's done. I have it. You send me a picture, like it's in my hand. Okay, cool. I said,
Yeah.
okay, cool. We'll apply it. You'll be good. And it's like that is very hard to replicate, you know? If you
Hmm.
have digestive issues, we handle it. You know,
Hmm.
I need you, if I'm like, hey, like I've been using this supplement, it's working like crazy. You order it. Like it's the dynamic of you trusting me and then me trusting you to execute cannot be replicated.
Yeah.
And again, everything is flowing in a good harmony for you. And that again, if we stay on it, like I see nothing but just unlimitless potential there.
Yeah.
And I mean, it didn't I know from a distance, like people are probably, oh, it's so easy for him, and it's like it's just been this, but they don't know the backstory on everything that we like injuries, setbacks, digestive issues, like just doing bodybuilding, the monotonous task day in and day out, and not being pissed off at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really cool for me to see. That's why when I share those, like it really means something because, you know, the progress you've had since we've started has been beyond exceptional. And, I can tell you this by working with lots of other clients that started with me in similar places, but aren't close to where you are now. And it's solely because I think it's execution is one, but number two, like you clearly have a belief in what you're doing, and that I think may be even more important than genetics, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree.
Yeah.
That's
Mm,
one of those. That's an intangible. Like I don't think you can ever replicate that. I mean, like David Goggins doesn't exist without David Goggins.
yeah.
Like go let some dude run ultra marathons with duct taping his fucking ankles up.
Yeah.
Because he broke them.
Right. Yes. Yes. And it would be so easy for you or anyone to like here's what I see the problem. I have clients who are good, but they think they're absolute dog shit compared to who they have to stand beside, right? And I think you and I can very much like accept the fact that there are bodybuilders out there that are levels above us in terms of genetics, in terms of their ability to grow, in terms of where they are now. But we don't allow that to even be a speed bump in our thought process of day-to-day bodybuilding.
Hmm.
You can get so caught up in Instagram, like, oh God, I'm not as good as him. I'm not as big as him. My back doesn't look like that. My legs don't sweep like his. Fill in the blank. Or you can just say, fuck off, man. I'm not there yet. Like,
Yeah.
I know what I
Yeah.
have to do to get better. And if I just do those and erase all that shit and have fun at bodybuilding, I've always found like good shit happens, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Agreed.
yeah.
So I mean, that's like the biggest. Like, I mean, 2 years ago, I competed with Colossus Ken. He just did his pro debut at the New York Pro this yesterday.
You got
I mean,
six.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Yeah. Most people, you drew the number literally right beside him.
yeah, I stood right next to him for when we walked out.
Right. And it's one of those things like you, I think you knew as well as I did. When I saw you stand behind him when y'all first came out, I'm like, okay, cool. I know what you have to get to
Hmm.
because he won North Americans that year. And I'm like,
Hmm.
cool. That's what you have to look like. Now, your own version of that. But
Yeah, exactly.
in terms of size, because your condition was probably better than his, if I'm being honest. Um, but it was just okay, cool. I know what every muscle needs to look like in order if you want to come back here and win this overall or any national level show, I know how big you have to be. And you just weren't there yet. Um, so like again, that to me always like fuels my fire for coaching you better. And I know that you doing that, it doesn't make you cower and be scared. It's like, all right, cool. I know what level I have to achieve now.
Yeah,
And sadly, not everyone's brain, I think, works that way. It's very much like defeatist, like, fuck it, I'll never be there. Well, of course not with that attitude.
yeah,
The 150 pound you never thought you'd be 230. Like,
yeah,
so what you're saying now, the 230, you can't be 260? Well, I don't know why the fuck not.
yeah,
So I, I hope everyone listening out there, like, no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, like, if you just move in the right direction today, and then tomorrow, that's all I ever ask of you, ever. And that's all I ever ask of myself. So, yeah, a little tangent to start our podcast this morning, but
yeah.
um, yeah.
I think that
So,
started it really well for what topic we have planned.
yeah, agree. Yes, yes. So, I messaged you yesterday and said let's look back at what old school bodybuilding has taught us. And the reason I wanted to do that is because as I age, I can see all the guys that I looked up to and idolized and studied, read about, watched videos on. Like they're slowly like fading in the background. And when I talk to newer bodybuilders today, if I say something like, "Oh, like, did you ever see that old Evanston to Bonnie video?" And they're like, "Who's that?" And I'm like, "No." Um, so what I thought we would do is just talk about like what are some cool lessons or things you and I both have learned from old school bodybuilding that we're going to do our best to teach the next generation. So do you want to start with like one that immediately came to your mind?
The I was super lucky because like when I was 18, I was walking home from like my job, and there was this strip mall, and in the strip mall there was this one sign. What was like it legitimately just said dungeon,
Okay. Yep.
and I walked past that probably 30 times. And then one day I was like, you know what? I want to fucking see what's down here because like it piques my interest. Like it could be like fucking terrible. I don't know what the fuck this is. I walk down there, go down this flight of stairs, and there's this old school gym in there. I walk downstairs, and there's the dude down there. He's just down there by himself, sitting at a desk.
Yeah.
And behind the desk there's a cot because like I'm pretty sure he was living there, right? But for all I know, he was just sleeping there. But um, that was the biggest dude I've ever seen in my life.
Okay.
And I was like, so I take this. There's a gym down here. He's like, yeah, we're doing it's a my training facility. And I was like, wow, okay. I do nothing about bodybuilding timing. And he's like, you know what, dude, come back tomorrow and I'll put you through an arm session. And I was like, fantastic. Because I was going to the gym. Like I knew like I wanted to be in the gym. But
Right.
at that point I wasn't specifically training for anything. I was just going to like train.
Yeah.
And he just put me through like 40 minutes of like arm day. And it was the hardest I've ever trained in my life.
Okay.
And that's a little backstory on that. But like one of the things he told me he's like, you need to get bigger if you want to do this. And he's like, I have yet to see anybody get fat eating chicken and rice. And those two, like, that was the first thing he fucking told me about diet. And I was like, that makes all the sense.
Yes.
And like my head back then, I was like, okay, cool. Like that's what I'll eat. Like it was one of those things. And like he was super old school. Like he never weighed anything. The only thing he weighed was his protein,
Right. Right.
you know? And like I said, he was probably one of the biggest dudes I've ever seen. He's actually a pro bodybuilder. He used to train Dexter Jackson.
That is a cool circumstance.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, he was actually like, got me into and like, so I'm super happy. That's where like this all started for me was just like, all right, cool. What the fuck is this random building over here? What I'm, walking past when I'm going to my job.
That leads very well into mine, and I feel like we are in a age now where everyone wants to try to optimize everything and be so like to the T that they miss a lot of like what I would consider big, bold basics. And what you just said about the chicken and rice is I think eating is the number one thing in bodybuilding that separates us from all other sports, really, to be honest, right? And even though I think most people who go to the gym, they might mind what goes into their mouth, but tracking what goes in your mouth and being sure to get 6 meals in that are protein heavy is a principle that is beginning to evaporate, right? Because it's like, oh,
Yeah.
maybe do it 5 meals or 4 meals, or if it fits your
No, or
macros,
you don't need meals. You can just snack all day.
right?
No,
Or
or you can just eat Quest chips and chocolate milk.
fuck, right? Yeah, yes, yeah. You know, I know I've ranted about this before, but like if half of your protein comes from dairy sources, like there's a reason you look soft. Like I, I know that of all the meal plans out there, like I feel like the vertical diet is probably the closest to what mine is as a whole, right? Like meat and rice, meat and fruit rice, meat and potatoes. Like it's literally as simple as that, guys. But we're getting away from that. I remember, like, God, I'd flip through those old Flex and Muscular Development magazines, and like you'd see like Jay's diet plan.
Hmm.
I remember just like I'd show it to my mom, and I'm like, "Can I get all this food to the store with you?" And she's like, "Yeah." And then I had no clue how to cook it. And then she would help me with it at first to like kind of show me how to use the stove and the oven and the grill and all that shit. And it's like, all right, cool. Once I learned that, then I just started fucking around in the kitchen and like, God, the amount of times I've eaten like overcooked chicken, like miserable, like mushy rice, potatoes
Yeah.
that were not good. Like, but it, I knew in my heart when I looked back at those magazines and it was like 10 to 12 ounces of lean meat, 2 to 3 cups of rice. I'm like, okay, I know what I got to do. Like, It it was that simple. It was a big mound of protein and a big mound of carbs, and you just shuttle that shit in every 2 to 3 hours, like clockwork. And you wake up the next day and you do the same. And then when you make it to the weekend, you get a free meal, right? Or it was like I remember seeing Jay's stuff where it was like him and Branch would like eat sushi till they couldn't see straight. I'm like,
Hmm.
that's what I get to do. Awesome. And I don't know why that is of the if you want to get big, you got to eat big has left the picture.
Well, I mean, it's probably because not many people want to be big anymore.
Oh, valid point. Yes. Yeah.
You know, like I hate to break it. I mean, it's one of those things. It's just like people like I want to be classic physique, and I'm an NPC competitor, and I don't have the structure for it, and I'm already at my weight cap.
Right.
You know, that one drives me up a fucking wall.
Agreed.
Like it's just like, and for whatever reason, like no one wants to do bodybuilding anymore because it's like deemed as the harder
Oh,
one, or the like the one that uses the most drugs, the one that does the all. It's like yeah, but not really. And people they're like, oh, I'm not good enough for bodybuilding. It's just like bodybuilding used to be the only class,
yes.
and you would show up and you see where you actually stood,
Yeah.
because you were judged on everything,
Right. Yeah.
you know.
I think a lot of these newer competitors would do well and had to learn a lot and self-reflect if they had to go stand in some of the lineups I stood in when I first started bodybuilding and it wasn't a novice anymore, of 30 deep in a light heavyweight class and get cooked.
Mhm.
And I know that, listen, when I was shit 25, still natural doing bodybuilding in open NPC against 40-year-olds, like that taught me a very valuable lesson. It was you got to get better. Like you may look good training in the gym, in your gym,
Mhm.
but there are freaks out there who've been doing this for 2 decades, man. Like you're gonna have to put a lot of work in. And that's what that taught me. Where I think now a lot of guys, that's why they choose another class or they just don't compete anymore. It's like, huh, I can do Instagram and stay shredded and make a lot of money selling training programs and ripping people off, selling Gymshark clothes. Like, like I don't know. You know,
Yeah.
the purity in me, like I'm glad I took those ass beatings. Like I needed that to fuel workouts to remind me, hey, like it's not fun to eat 10 ounces of ground beef and two sweet potatoes, but you better get it down
Hmm.
because I knew what I was gonna have to stand beside the next year or two. And that positive pressure for me is what drove me in the gym and drove me at the dinner table and still drives me to this day. Like, you know, you and I can walk into a gym and 9 times out of 10 be probably the biggest and most well-developed guys in there, but we know the guys we're going to compete against at the national level are just that or bigger or better.
Yeah.
So it's like you need that reminder to not veer away from the amount of food you need to eat. And I think that's what, before I wrap this point up here, I think a lot of guys may like look at like Chris Bumstead and be like, I want to look like him. He's not that big. I'm like, have you ever stood beside him in real life? And the answer is no. Does Chris Bumstead look big beside a peaked Phil Heath? He doesn't look as big, but Chris Bumstead also stood beside Martin and pushed him to the edge.
Hmm.
I think people forget that. Like, Chris is a big dude. Like,
Yeah.
watch his training videos. There's a reason he's the size and the development that he is. He's
Hmm.
strong, man. And that's a dude with an autoimmune disease. So I kind of just chuckle when they're like, oh, I'm going to do men's physique because they aren't that big. I'm like, have you ever seen any of the top five outside of Ryan Terry? They're enormous. They're big men.
Yeah.
Like, sorry, like you're gonna have to get big. And most of us without elite level genetics are gonna have to eat a lot of food and train a lot of weights, like to achieve that look. So, all right. So I said food for me. What's another one for you?
Oh, so I mean, like, well, the I mean, the 6 meals a day is actually such like an like I know nowadays it's just like get your macros in, make sure you hit your protein goals. There's no reason to have structured, but like the reality is that structure is what drives progress.
Agreed. Yes.
Like there was zero chance in my life that I can wake up, go out, and even just buy the food I need to eat to even diet,
Yeah.
like on lower calories, um, and be able to hit my macros. Right. That one always makes me laugh because it's just like you cannot go through any normal person cannot wake up and go to and just buy any of your food throughout the day and actually hit your meal plan consistently. Like, cool, if you're on vacation, you might be able to,
Yeah.
but you're also gonna be spending $70 a day,
Yes. Yep.
you
Yep.
know? And that's like the one of the bigger things is, the consistency, the planning, the thinking ahead before like, okay, cool, I'm going to the grocery store and I have to run this errand. So that means I need to bring a meal with me. So that means I need to have that with me so that I can progress.
Yep.
It's not I'm going to do this now and I'm just going to free ball the shit out of it.
Yes.
It's one of those things where it's like the best bodybuilders are the ones that have the least shitty days.
Yes.
Because there's plenty of times where, like you wake up, you're like, yeah, I definitely have chicken cooked. You go downstairs, you open up the fridge, and there's no chicken cooked. You're like, okay, fuck. What options do I have? I have work I have work, be at work in an hour, you know? And it's like, sometimes you're eating canned chicken, shit, you can go like, I've had people go to Panda Express and just get their fucking teriyaki chicken
Yep.
and then weigh it. And it's
Yep.
like, is that the best option? Not a fucking chance. Is it better than not trying? You know, but the person winning your show isn't doing that.
Yeah.
He's the least bad days, and that happens from planning ahead and being prepared.
Yes. Yep.
Two concepts what are free. That doesn't take genetics. That there's no genetics to be being prepared.
Zero. It
It's
just
just a matter of doing the work.
and yeah, that forethought is what kind of blows me away, right? Because I'll have guys who will say, "Oh, Chris, it's a weekend. I'm going to sleep in, so it's hard for me to get 6 meals in." You knew the weekend was coming. Like,
Yeah, you still have it's the weekend. You still have goals, right?
Right. Yes. And I'm like, well, the amount of times early in Angela and I's relationship where, she likes to sleep in. And I would always just get up and eat my meal and then get back to bed with her.
Yeah.
Like, it's as easy as that. I'd get up. If I had to do cardio, I'd do it. I'd eat, and then I'd get back into bed with her. Like, it's as simple as that. Like, and guess what? She didn't give an absolute fuck. So, yeah,
Or here's a pro tip: when you wake up, make your breakfast, eat it. If you don't feel like going back to bed, chill. Then make her breakfast.
correct. Yes.
$10, you're gonna have a really fucking nice day.
Yes. Agreed. Yes.
Yeah, that took 5 minutes of your time. Like
Because you're about to gain about 20 really good minutes.
yeah.
All right, so the next thing that taught me this is another food one, but taking food and meals with us, like a cooler, a lunchbox, right? Like I was so big on like the Ronnie and Jay DVDs when I was younger, and then when Dusty started putting out stuff on YouTube, like I always noticed, like I love those day in the lives where he would like go to Costco and shit, and was always like, "Have a meal with me just in case something happens," and taught me a very valuable lesson. Hey, if you're going to be out 2, 3 hours, you should probably take 2 meals with you just in case. Like, well, Chris, just in case what? I don't know. And the cool part is if you already have those meals prepared, if you get home in say an hour and a half, you have 2 meals that you can smash and you don't have to make. You just literally eat it out of the Tupperware, put it in the microwave, done. So being prepared, having a good lunchbox or some kind of cooler, and then good ice packs. Like it's something I don't see a lot of people talk about in this time. Like when I was mid 20s, late 20s, those ISO bags were really popular. The 6-pack bags were popular. I know now people have those wolf pack bags with the refrigerated section in it or the
Mhm.
portion. But I don't see nearly as many people talking about that online that probably should be. Um, because listen, if you and I go anywhere and do anything together, you and I always have a lunchbox with us.
Mhm.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's just the whatever we're doing is not going to make us miss a meal.
No.
Like we know all the excuses.
Yep.
We could probably make 1,000, but it's also really hard to like be like, okay, I'm gonna put 8 ounces of chicken and 225 grams of rice and tablespoon of olive oil in a Tupperware. That's really fucking difficult.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not hard to bring with you. Oh, I don't have a microwave. Every single gas station you go to has a microwave.
Yes.
All of them.
Yep. Yep. I mean, I'm sure you remember in Swiss, like you and I just went and heated our food up at Starbucks.
Mhm.
Simple as
Yeah,
that. Grab a coffee, heat your food. I probably grab me another water if my memory's right,
yeah,
and we are right back to work. Simple as that. Like,
yeah. Oh, and mind you, at Swiss they made like the bodybuilding menu,
yes.
which was like I believe it was like $32 for 5 ounces of chicken and a cup of rice.
Right.
Man, I mean, like planning ahead doesn't really feel that bad now, does it? I was like, okay, cool. This saved me, exactly $33.
Yes. And that's you and I eating organic, fancy Trader Joe food.
Yeah.
Where people would say, "Oh, you're privileged." I'm like, "Well, yeah." Or we could have paid that much at the hotel, and I'm not going to do that. Like, and even then, like, how good is that quality of chicken and rice? Like, I don't know. It's all the shit that I personally think about.
Yeah.
So yeah, being prepared, having a cooler is something that I definitely learned through old school bodybuilding. That I pray kids take to heart now. Because as I said 1,000 times, like Chipotle and Five Guys, it's just not the same. Like, could you go to Outback and get 2 plain potatoes and an 8-ounce fillet and tell them not to put any butter or oil on it? You could.
Yeah.
Um, that goes back to what I just said. How much is that going to cost me? $30, 25 with a tip, like, or I could just go get me a big ass flank steak and have it grilled and bring my own potato, which is like 32 cents. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my second one. How about you? What do you got for three?
Honestly, the when it comes down to like fasted cardio,
Oh yeah.
I know so many people are like, you don't need to do fasted cardio. But then like specifically, like I know that sets my day up for success.
Yes.
Like there's a part there where like, okay, cool. Yeah, if you didn't sleep that night, you woke up, you get only get 5 hours of sleep, you need to fix that.
Yeah.
Like fasted cardio is probably not your best friend, but there's also something you need to fix there or try to fix.
Yes.
But getting up and doing cardio and then starting your day, it sets the in your intentions. And I mean, it also helps get you leaner. So,
Great.
depending on what your diet looks like, but like trying to do all of that like post workout or the end of the day, chances are it gets skipped or half assed,
Yes.
and none of that's never gonna, you know, obviously skipping is never gonna make success. But anything you half ass in life, like, is gonna do exactly that. It's gonna give you half ass results. And I mean, bodybuilding is one of those sports where this isn't like, college where you show up and you can cheat on the test. You get like a C, you get your fucking degree, and then, you become an influencer and you sell, push pull, upper lower programs to everybody because it's science based. But, this is like it's bodybuilding. So like if you don't get a 90 or above, it didn't work.
Right. Yeah.
If you eat 85% of your meals for the week, you don't make progress. If you do 85% of your training, you don't make progress. And then if you do your training at 90%, you might make some progress, but the difference between 90 and 100 is wild.
Oh, without a doubt. Yes.
Same with your meals. And that's just the life because it gives you exactly what you put back into it. That's the nice thing about bodybuilding is the effort you put in, you get back.
Right. Yeah.
It's one of the few things that does that, and it doesn't lie to you. And that's like the fun part too, because it doesn't lie to you. You're like, oh man, that was my best effort, but I'm not seeing changes. Why do you think that is?
Yeah. My love for fasted cardio for so many reasons. Like, not only does I think it allows you to like mentally dial your day in and prepare you for what's coming, I think it sets your metabolism up in a good spot. It makes you really hungry for meal one if you aren't already hungry. That's huge to me in the off season at least. Um, and then like you said, it takes that off and done for the day before you're at work, right? It's so nice to get into work, and I know this firsthand is you get in there and like cardio's already done. I'm going to train middle of the day, and then if I have cardio again, I can do that at night if I had to. So that's one. Number two, the idea of saving cardio to post lift never made sense to me because I always thought if I have enough energy to do cardio post lift, did I do what I needed to do properly in the gym? And I think that I'll always say no. And you can might be able to argue like an arm day. Okay, cool. You and I could probably go train arms and do 30 minutes on the stairs and not blink at it. But could you imagine doing 30 minutes of stairs after back or legs? The answer is no. It's going to be on at least two levels down, or you'll be tripping off the fucking back of it. I'm sorry. Now, I know I've had guys and girls do like 8 to 10 minutes of stairs post lift, but it's at a low speed and it's squeezing your glutes. That's for a whole other reason. I'm talking about all of your cardio being done immediately post lift. And there's something to me that doesn't make sense about packing all of your exercise into one window. Like I like it separate if
Yeah,
possible.
it's one of those things. It's just like you wouldn't do it with food.
Right. Yes. Right.
Like, would you eat all, you know, 3 pounds of chicken for meal one?
No.
Like, why are you doing it with your workout?
Right. Agreed. Agreed.
It's one of those things. It's like I've seen people try. They do their, they work out, they could do their cardio, and then they do the mobility work. It's like, are you going to be at the gym for 4 hours,
Right. Yeah.
or is all of that just being half-assed?
Well, yeah, because you and I both know 4 hours, you lose attention span. I don't care who
Yeah.
you um at some point past that probably like 80 minute window, you're losing focus and intensity. Like, I'm sorry. I don't care how much you love it. It's just waning. Another thing I think a lot of times people don't consider is they're like, oh, Chris, well, I have to drive to the gym for cardio. And my gym's 35 minutes away. All right, you need to find you either a closer gym. Like there's a Planet Fitness across from my house. Might take me 3 minutes to get there if I wanted to. Okay. If that's not an option because you live in the country or somewhere off the beaten path, can you afford a Stairmaster, a bike, a treadmill? It doesn't have to be top of the line, by the way. Like, go look at yard sales or Facebook Marketplace. Like, go search Craigslist and try to find like just a shitty piece of cardio you can store at your house and do.
Yeah.
Right.
There's thousands of them,
Right. Yes. Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And I mean, lastly, it's like if it takes you 35 minutes to get to the gym and you don't have money for a treadmill, it's like, why don't you fucking walk somewhere?
That was going to be my next point.
The floor is fucking free.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, a brisk walk is legitimately what you're doing on the treadmill.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember it was a cool story that Ron Partlow told in a podcast I listened to once where he was prepping for, I think, one of the Canadian national shows in the dead of winter. And he said, I would literally go out there in like -12 wind chill and do my morning walk outside. And I thought that I was shivering the fat off. Like it was a more effective fat burn because I was freezing that cold. And I'm like, okay, if you can do that, so can everyone else. Like, it was probably miserable. I'm not gonna lie to you. But dear God, it goes back to I think what you and I always bang on. If you want something bad enough, nothing will stand in your way.
Mhm.
Nothing. Um, I I have no issue doing outdoor walks, or any of my clients doing outdoor walks for their cardio. So if you can't afford something at home, if you don't live in an apartment complex that has cardio for everyone to use, or your gym's not close, literally put your shoes on and get to walking.
Mhm.
Like it's if there's a park near you that has stairs or bleachers, like just go walk those. Just hit start on your watch or phone for whatever minutes I have on there or you have on there and go until the timer goes off. Like, I don't think it's that complicated that you can't find a way if you really want it. So yes, fasted cardio, that's a great point. I think next thing for me is like just the brutal intensity in which gaining muscle requires of training specifically. And I mean, I know people talk shit about Branch and Johnny's training or Ronnie Coleman's or Jay Cutler's, but man, that's how I learned how to train, like as a bodybuilder. And that's who I idolized. That's who I looked up to. That's who every time I went in the gym, I envisioned replicating as close to humanly possible, you know? And I, it just breaks my heart to see this new generation think that all of that is poor training and they're
Mhm.
not being optimal when still to this day they're some of the biggest humans to ever walk our planet. I don't know other way to say it. Like to me, when I go into the gym, I want to be abnormal. I don't if I'm cool like looking like all the other people there, I'm either in a great facility or if I work out like them, I'm going to look like them. And I knew always the gyms that I trained at, there was a handful of guys and girls that looked like freaks, and they all got after it. And I was like, hey,
Mhm.
cool. I want to be like that group, not the majority over here who are fucking talking and flirting with chicks and dicking off with their friends and posing in the mirror and leaving so many reps on the table or just choosing to not train hard. Because to me, it's an active choice. I don't care what anybody says. Unless you're injured, it's an active choice to train soft. And
Mhm.
I don't know, that's something that I feel to this day is I'm so strong and passionate about is I have yet to work with a client who follows all this new science-based reps and reserve shit who's a freak. And I've worked with a lot of people.
Yeah.
Anyone who's made significant progress has always been those guys and girls who say, I'm gonna go in there and give it my heart and soul for an hour to an hour and a half, 4 to 5 days a week, eat my meals and repeat.
Mhm.
I'm sure you've seen the same thing.
Oh, 100%. I mean, that is the biggest. I mean, the thing with bodybuilding is training drives everything else.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like, when your training isn't great, your nutrition can be 100%, but it's not gonna make up for the training you didn't do or the reps you missed. Because I mean, the there is no way you're fixing that with You're going to add more stress to your body with doing less.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed.
It's the most, I mean, you go to a science project, go sit on your ass and nail your diet for a month, and then go sit on your ass and nail your diet and train really fucking hard for a month.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's pretty fucking,
You know what's really interesting? I've seen a lot of these science-based lifters quoting Dorian Yates and being like, see, Dorian only says 1 or 2 sets per workout or per exercise. He only trains 4 times a week. And I'm like, yes, you're right. But go watch Blood and Guts and look what those 4 days of training look like. Because you
yeah,
can talk out of both sides of your mouth and say, well, Dorian says this, but you should leave reps in reserve. No,
yeah,
that
he
wasn't his
left,
principle.
left absolutely nothing. He went until his spotter failed.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Go watch him do the leg extensions. Like Leroy's like fucking doing a deadlift at the last rep.
Yes, yes. Like I think that's what drives me crazy, right? Because it's like cherry picking verbiage. And I'm like, okay, but you have to understand the context behind that. When in the 90s when he was training and he came up with his high intensity protocols, I'm sure it was married. I know he was married to Mike Mentzer's philosophies, but he made it his own. He said, okay, cool. Everyone else is chasing the pump and doing tons of volume. What if I max out the intensity and trained less? But he knew that intensity drove growth. And I've said this to you. I know I've said it on here on the internet. Like you have to pick either volume or intensity. Those are the two things that drive progress in the gym in my book. Because I think either approach can work. Um, and it can work really well in unison when you alternate back and forth between them, but that's another topic. You have to pick one or the other, and then you're still being progressive within each one of those disciplines, right? Like just because I choose volume for, say, chest, it doesn't mean I'm always going to bench press 225 on the incline. No, I'm still trying to take it up. I'm still going to do a lot more sets than a top set and a back off. Simple as that. So I think that's something that I really think a lot of guys could just benefit from watching Blood and Guts. Ronnie Coleman, unbelievable. Jay Cutler, a cut above the rest. God, I don't. It's the name of that Mark Dugdale video is eluding me, where he's doing DC training. I'll have to look it up after this. It pisses me off. I cannot remember it for the life of me. That was another banger that I used to watch. Those old Flex Lewis training with Rich Gaspari videos. I had the whole DVD series. Frank McGrath and those Animal Pack videos. Like if you spend some time watching those, it would enlighten you a lot. And guess what? It'll make your cardio go by super fast.
Yeah.
So that's my advice. Anything training related for you?
Well, I mean, you can always apply like what you do in training to real life too.
Yeah. Yes.
Because I mean, like we've all seen it. Like go do a leg press, and where your body tells you to stop versus where you actually stop is this far apart. There's a long distance there, and realizing what like you can apply that to pretty much everything.
Right. Yep.
Like it's not just isolated effort in the gym what makes bodybuilders. Like taking that effort and applying it to you, or making sure you have your fucking Tupperwares, you know, or like making sure your girlfriend has a good day.
Yes.
Doing the same shit. It just doesn't have to be. It's taking the oh cool, I can do hard things and they make me better. You know, that approach to life.
What you just said ties so closely to what I had as my final one, and it is the work ethic that all those men I just described had outside of bodybuilding, right? Like, so I watched Ronnie Coleman go be a police officer after doing all that cardio and hard ass training. I watched Jay build multiple businesses around bodybuilding so that when he retired, he'd have something to fall back on. A lot of people don't know this, but Branch Warren owned gyms and a logistics company for years while he was competing as a pro. Like, I looked at all those guys and I'm like, man, like they're finding ways to take all the principles they learned in bodybuilding, applying it to business and just killing it. Like Where I think a lot of people viewed bodybuilding as like, oh, it's these lazy dudes who just do cardio, they eat their meals, sleep, and train. And I'm like, well, yeah, some of them might.
Yeah.
I realized at a young age that I was never going to be that good of a bodybuilder. I was going to go probably win the Olympia. But I'm like, I can definitely make money off of bodybuilding and get paid to train for years. And I'll share this fun story with people. I had a guy who he caught me in the gym training one day and he was like, hey, Chris, like, I'd love to be your training partner, but I'm not on your level. And I said, okay, cool. He's like, if I paid you for personal training, can I just work out with you? And I said, you're going to have to pass a test first. But yeah, so he came one day, we did legs. He got slaughtered, but he had good work ethic. For
Yeah.
2.5 years, he paid me to, I got paid to train. Literally, he said, I just want to show up and tag along. He gave me $60 a workout. So do that math. 5 sessions at $60. $300 a week I was getting paid to train. Pretty awesome, right? Like
Hmm.
you can't make that up. Like I found that the better I got at coaching, I can now, instead of training people all day in the gym, I can do it from home from my computer. And
Yeah.
that means that I get to see my wife more, I can see my kids more. I get to go, if I take vacation, I can still work and I still get paid. Where when I was a trainer, if we went on vacation, I made zero, none. And I don't care who you are, that's scary. Um, like
True.
imagine taking a 10-day vacation with your wife and you're like, oh, I made zero money this week.
Yeah. And
Well,
you just spent a good clip of it too.
correct. Yes. That's petrifying to me. So again, I think that as you said, there's so much carryover in what we learn and do in bodybuilding with discipline and consistency and effort that's what I learned from a lot of those old school guys. And I mean, you still see Jay and Ronnie working the circuit, right? Like Phil Heath is now doing it. Like anyone who had any success on stage and has the desire to thrive at life, like they find ways to take everything they learned and apply it in bodybuilding and then make money off of it financially. And that's what I call living the dream in my mind, right?
Mhm.
Like something that was a hobby that grew into a passion that turned into a job, and then now you're going to be able to retire off of it. Like that's a cool life. So,
Super true.
anything else you want to add before we wrap up today?
No, that's pretty much it.
One good thing I do want to say to finish, I don't think we touched on this at all, was early in my bodybuilding in the magazines, they would always say, the importance of whole food and hard training, and that supplements were exactly what their name is, a supplement to hard training and a good diet.
Hmm.
And even though, those magazines, that's how they made all their money was selling ads for supplements, they still had the integrity to say that, right? Like, so I need everyone to remember that. And when I say supplements, I'm talking about over the counter shit. And I'm also talking about gear, man. Like it literally is not the secret. I, and I don't know other way to say it. And sadly, for guys and girls out there who have never used gear, they're never going to believe me and or you when we say this. But because listen, I didn't believe it either until before I jumped on that magic carpet, right? And you think, oh, well, I'm using tests now. I can get away with things. And the answer is you can't. It's just more important. Like, and I always thought this, if I'm going to do something that potentially is going to shorten my lifespan, I need to maximize everything that I'm doing to bodybuilding to get the most out of it. And
Yeah.
that's me speaking brutal truth to the computer screen, right? Or, if I'm gonna spend $600 a kit on Serostem, motherfucker, I better maximize every penny I just spend. And because listen, I had to do a lot of client updates,
Hmm.
so uh, it's just something I want everyone to consider out there. Like, I know that a lot of people believe that bodybuilding is nothing but genetics and drugs, and yes, you need good genetics, and yes, you need supplements, or you can't compete. But that's not the truth. It's a synergistic effect of all the things. Um, and please God, remember that study that every one of those pencil necks quote about guys can sit on the couch and inject tests and grow at a faster rate than naturals is just full of shit. Like, it's not the truth. Um, And if you saw the behind the scenes that I did, and you know the things that you'd be shocked that people run, and you'd be like, really? They don't look like they train. Like, yeah, it's because they don't. So the answer to your solutions aren't in the bottle. It just isn't. So until next time, Chris Dave, old school bodybuilding, we're gonna push the narrative. I don't care what everyone thinks, it's the truth.